regardless of what function we're carrying, how it's all going, we said we're here for it.
We did.
And we're in it together.
We are.
Well, hey, how are you?
Fantastic.
You ready for our topic today?
I am.
Let's get it. So we asked the staff to send us some stuff, and they ask this question: how do you maintain the romance and have emotional intimacy?
Yeah. I think they were asked two different ways. We're kind of putting them together.
Yeah, we're kind of combining them today. And so want to kind of dig into this. I think it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people lean towards sex. We're going to talk a little bit about sex today. But for us, sex isn't the fix for everything. Yeah. And in fact, emotional intimacy doesn't always lead to the bedroom, but it definitely helps what happens in the bedroom be good.
Amen.
Amen. And so that's really what we're looking for. It's not just sex. We're looking for connection, intimacy, and then out of that, hopefully freedom takes place.
Yeah. I think we kind of want to talk through, I would say, one of the things that maybe I think is a positive of how we even started our relationship 25 years ago.
With all the dysfunction.
Yeah. No, we've already aired.
Exactly.
One of the key components that I think was, I don't know, a deal maker. I don't know. Certainly not a deal breaker, is that we were friends first.
Yeah.
I think that would be something, if you're listening and you're not married, if you're dating, if you're single, looking to date somebody, I think, can you be friends?
Yeah.
First, because when we talk about romance, or talking about the subject of romance, intimacy, I think having a friendship, bringing fun into the relationship and having that type of chemistry first is important. I think that's one of the things that worked for us right off the bat. And I think we've been able to do, I would say, a pretty good job. You might have a different opinion. I think what we've been able to do and how we've carried that over into marriage, even in some of our hardest years, carrying over just that friendship. It's not necessarily, I know a lot of couples that, yes, they might be physically attracted to each other. They might have a lot of sexual chemistry, but they won't hang out with each other.
Right.
And go ahead.
No, well, I think friendship is massively important. And I would say some of the couples that we know that have had maybe the hardest time in their marriage have been couples that maybe lost their friendship.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was really never part of the equation to begin with. And they're working really hard now to develop friendship and that type of intimacy and relationship.
Yeah.
So I think now we just say, like, that's probably been, if people really ask us what has worked for you guys, is that we were friends and we did like hanging out with each other, and we still like hanging out with each other. There's really nobody, and I'm not just saying this, I mean, I think this is true, but there's nobody we'd rather hang out with than each other.
Yeah.
And that means, that makes it a whole lot easier, because we're usually moving towards each other, not away.
Yeah.
And obviously the seasons have changed, and what it looks like now versus what it looked like, when the kids were younger, is different. But I think that is such a key to really developing intimacy. So if you want to know, how does our intimacy and our romance get better? It means our friendship gets stronger. And I was actually at a church in Texas, and I thought it was brilliant, because so many churches, and ours too, we talk about community, but their slogan was "Find Friends." And like basically it's like, come here and we'll help you find friends. And I think what's really interesting is when you pull back the layers of what's happening in our culture today, like there's a lot of people that have very surface relationship, but our friendships, like our true like depth of friendship is not there.
Yeah.
And then what we end up coming across is like a lot of couples that have friends, but they're not friends with each other.
Yeah.
So
That's hard.
Yeah, it's hard because you end up talking to your friend about things you don't talk to your spouse about, and it just gets wonky, and we are not a fan of that. I don't want there ever being anything between Lauren and I, and I don't want you to feel like you have to have something between us. And so I think really coming to that place of how do we develop that friendship lends itself to much more emotional intimacy, lends itself to much more romance. And again, I want to be careful because friendship doesn't equate intimacy and romance. It's just a beginning place where a lot of those barriers can begin to fall so that those things can come into existence.
I guess we kind of wanted to share when we were preparing for this. In fact, we were on the way to Tarboro. To eat lunch. And we've eaten lunch together once a week for,
I don't know.
15 years at least.
At least.
And tried to maintain that throughout, whether or not we had kids, didn't have kids, had young kids, have teenage kids. We've maintained that for
It was just an intentional,
forever.
We called it our lunch date.
Yeah. And that's just been the one constant that we've been able to maintain.
Mm-hmm.
But during COVID, we would still go to the same place in Tarboro to eat lunch, but we would just get it because you couldn't really eat in restaurants. So you would just get it to go, and then we'd go down there and eat it at the park. And on the way, we were there last time, we were talking about that year. Because even though 2020 on paper was probably one of our hardest years.
And most stressful for sure.
Most stressful.
All through that.
You and I were able to still maintain friendship and relationship and connection throughout.
Yeah, and there was a lot of stuff that got reignited in us during COVID because we were spending so much time together, and it kind of reprioritized your life.
Yeah.
And I know there was a lot of bad in it, but for us, we were driving to Tarboro that day, and we passed because there's a little path, there's a road that runs down beside the river. And so we would drive down there, and always tried to get you to make out with me after lunch. But we would drive down there, and we would sit by the water, and that's what we did. And we would eat, and we'd just have the time of our life because, the whole world slowed down in a real way.
Yeah.
But I think that looking back on it, it really did reposition ourselves to realize how much the busyness of life had eaten into our friendship.
Yeah.
And man, life's too short for that. And so really getting that place that, we continue to talk about on this podcast, but when we set our vows to each other, I promised you my attention. Mm-hmm. I promised you, you're going to hold my attention. And you promised me that I would hold yours. And so what does that mean? It means that we're going to spend time together, but we're also not just going to spend time together, but we're going to really begin to have friendship and lean into that with each other. And I think so often, we can lose that. Yeah. Don't you feel like we can lose that?
Well, I do. And I think the misconception is to be friends with your spouse, you have to like all the same things.
Heck no. You've never gone to the golf course ever with me.
Okay, first off, I have gone.
You've gone one time.
No, I've gone 3 or 4.
There's no way you've gone 3 or 4.
I have.
No, you haven't.
Yes, absolutely.
That must have been when we were dating and you were trying to woo me. I don't have any idea about this.
It's been at least a handful of times.
Okay. Oh my gosh. We went to a handful?
A handful.
3 or 4 is not a handful.
Well,
5 is a handful.
Okay, but I'm saying within the 5. I would say it's been more than twice.
And how many times did you say you enjoyed it? Or did you complain?
None. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it.
No, you complained every single time you were out there.
Not.
Yes, you did.
But that would be, I think, finding 1 or 2 things that you do have in common.
Yeah. And for us, it's what?
Oh, like driving and eating somewhere.
Oh, food.
For sure.
We love food.
We do like to walk outside.
We do like to walk outside. Yes.
Or do you not like to walk outside?
I love to walk outside. You just like certain weather conditions. No, certain weather conditions you like walking outside. I love how you were
I'm not an outdoorsy
walker
person.
outside. What are you talking about? It has to be 60, 75 degrees, sunny, with very little wind.
Very ideal.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think one of the things, and I can't remember where I heard this. I love that you're laughing at me. I think I heard this somewhere, and I don't remember where. But with men walk better and talk better when you're shoulder to shoulder with them, like as a team, versus when you're just sitting across from them.
Wow.
And I've tried to apply that with my boys. And I think that's why when Wesley turned 15 and
that's
he
so
was
good.
predominantly driving with me because he refused to drive with
Yeah.
you, which I'd love to hear your story on
No,
that.
there's no need to hear that. All I see is
It would reveal all your control.
dollar
your
signs
controls.
and ridiculous driving. I don't know where he learned to drive like that. It's crazy. Like he's driving a golf cart.
I know. It's shocking.
Yeah.
Anyways, when we had that year together and we were just in the car because you have to get a certain amount of hours, those were the best conversations that we
Yeah,
had.
you actually grieved when he got his license.
Oh, it was sad.
Because you were like, we're not going to be in the car together.
Yeah. So I just think something that for a woman, if you've never heard that before, I would just say try that. If you're ever having to have a, deep intentional conversation with your spouse or with your sons or any male, I think is the more that you can keep side by side and the less that you can sit across from each other, the more apt they're willing to share and be open to what you're saying. So I think that's why I say I like our walking, because I feel like in that time you are pretty intentional about having intentional conversations.
So then because this is wild. I didn't know you were going to share that. That's really, I think that's amazing because God created us to walk side by side.
Yeah.
Not one walk in front of the other.
Yeah.
And I think that, physically walking can also kind of reveal, like if you watch, like if we're not careful, depending on the emotion of the situation and emotional, where we're at emotionally at the time, I can walk really fast.
Oh, you like haul tail.
I cover ground. I'm walking with a purpose.
At Disney, you left me in the dust.
Well, that's because that is a war. We aren't, this is not, when you go to Disney, it is game on.
Yeah.
You are against the evil one, right?
Falls on my own.
But you can walk fast too. I think it's just an interesting thing walking side by side. I think it's a really interesting thought.
That?
I've never heard that, but I think it's amazing. And I think it's really spiritual. And I think there's a lot to that of like really focusing on when even we're walking side by side, that we would be in unison, not step and step like military, but I'm saying like we're in this together.
And keeping pace together.
We're keeping pace together. And I think that's really good. And I honestly, thinking back on it, that's why over the last few months you've said, hey, let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
It's because you're trying to help me unpack all that's going on. And in fact, guys, we've done videos about it, but that's when we do our Wiles, Worries, Wishes, Wounds.
Yeah. Wisdom
is that we're walking and we're talking and it's really healthy in that. That's good.
So I think having friendship with your spouse, again, does not have to look like y'all all having the same hobbies.
Yeah, and I still, there's a day or two that you're like, hey, you can go play golf anytime these times, or you're free, and I'm asking if we're communicating about those things. Your big thing is self-care. You love self-care. You love to go do all those things. I don't even know what all those things are.
I could just sit at home all day and be perfectly fine.
With your dog.
With my dog.
Which don't even get me started on Ruby. Don't even get me started.
Snow days, you struggle.
Yes.
Because you're trapped.
Snow days, I really struggle. I'm like, what am I going to do now? I'll even start cleaning on snow days. But but I think for us is really, even when we go on trips together, which we love to do, you like to kind of sleep in, stay in bed, kind of sit there and take your time. You like reels.
Do not like to be rushed.
You do not. Oh my gosh. If you want to ever get Lauren in a bad mood, that's like David.
No, I would say that. Well, yeah, that's probably is more like.
Yeah, David struggles to be rushed. Wesley's just angry when you wake him up. He's just angry.
He's not a morning person.
He's not a morning person. But when we go on trips, I'll get up, I'll go work out. I'll always go find some place to go work out. You'll take your time, do your stuff, and then we'll go get lunch together. That's kind of our pacing.
Yeah. And
that's kind of our rhythm. And it's the things that we like to do together, but we also know what we like to do apart from each other. Yeah. And I think both are important.
Yeah, I think when we finally realize that we can go on trips together and try to find like a happy medium of you like to do things, you like to be an adventurer, but finding a place that it doesn't necessarily have to be that for me, but finding enough things for you to do that you like.
And that's why we like to go back to the same places too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we know what the rhythm's going to be.
Yeah.
That's good. The other thought that we had is that Lisa, one of our mentors, she talked about a podcast that
Yes.
really helped us. Why don't you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? Because I think that was amazing resource for all
Yeah.
those that are listening.
One of the previous episodes, we talked about attachment styles, and she found a podcast, and it's called The Place We Find Ourselves. And it was a recent episode, number 171, and it's called Your Sexuality and Your Story, Linking the Past to the Present.
Mm-hmm.
And how often we don't necessarily connect those two things.
No.
But how important it is.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I that was we had a big talk about that podcast after we listened to it.
Yeah.
And how it helped me unpack some things in me over our sex life and just sexual intimacy and why it means what it means to me.
Yeah.
And it really helped even you understand me. And then we talked through some of your stuff as well. And it just really is a huge resource that we'd encourage you guys to just take some time. It's like 30 minutes long, but it kind of begins to stir in your mind some real understanding of peeling back the onion of sexuality in your life.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, really key, especially because so often, it's funny. I do watch reels occasionally, and there's just a lot of things out there that people are throwing a lot of shade at the church, and I'm just talking about the big C church over purity culture. Have you heard about this? And the problems with purity culture, and
which I would say that's probably. I know we're just a couple years difference, but I would say we probably both grew up in that.
Oh yeah, we definitely grew up in that, and for me, walking through marriages, walking through our own, I'd say I don't really have any issue with the message of purity. Mm-hmm. Like I think that's a biblical message. So I think we have to be careful that we don't make the enemy the wrong thing. What I would say though is purity that is held out of fear, or a fear-based purity, can lead us to this place where when we enter into marriage, there is no freedom. Mm-hmm. There is no real ability to be intimate because we've actually tried to kill things in us, or religion, or what the enemy has told us, or what religion has told us. Now we're fearful of giving our bodies to each other.
Yeah, because you hear it's bad, bad, bad.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, never mind. It's
yeah,
not.
and so that's a real thing. I mean, so I would never have any issue with purity. God wants you to stay pure till you're married. But within that purity, we have to realize that that is out of honor to God, mm-hmm. not out of fear of his anger.
Yeah.
All right, that's really important. But those of us who have struggled before marriage, we have a tendency then to enter into marriage and carry with us the shame of our past, mm-hmm. which also shuts us down to being able to be free in marriage.
Yeah.
And so we have to really begin to work through the shame of our past, if you will, so that we can begin to open up to our spouse, not just sexually, but intimately. Mm-hmm. And that's challenging. Of how do we really begin to unpack the heart? How do we really begin to unpack these false beliefs? How do we begin to work on this? And that's why we're such a proponent. I think we've said it sideways, but there's some stuff from Lauren and my past that we cannot fix. I mean, the truth is, I can't go back in time. I was a big proponent of counseling, where it's called theophostic counseling, inner healing counseling, and still believe in that stuff. But what I would say is there's some things in my past that Jesus can show up himself there, and he has at times, but it doesn't change what happened. Mm-hmm. So healing begins in that place, but it has to work its way forward in my life. And so that's great, but it doesn't change it.
Yeah.
But what I can do is I can work on us. And what we found is when we start working on our marriage together, all of a sudden there's an intimacy that comes into our marriage that wasn't there before, because it's actually not about getting over something. Mm-hmm. It's about building something from this moment forward.
Yeah. I think even going back to the podcast, she shared, it kind of broke down the attachment styles. And when they talked about being in the what I would be like a dismissive avoidant, where they withdraw and they don't want to connect. In the podcast, he talks through specifically.
Those are dark days. Dark days.
That type of personality would rather connect sexually than emotionally. So if you already have that dynamic in your relationship and you're not working on the connecting emotionally and the intimacy part of it, you can have sex all day long. It doesn't mean you're actually connecting with your spouse.
That's right.
For somebody with that attachment style.
Yeah. And I think, if we're not careful, we just never really, and here's the thing, and this is the other thing, and I know that most of our listeners probably get this, but you're not going to be, sex won't always be the same.
No.
I mean, there's still things, we're 45, I love our sex life. I think we have a great sex life, but the truth is it's going to change in season, and hopefully it gets better, right? But the truth is, it will not. What is absolutely true about your sex life with your partner is that it will not remain the same.
No.
And so there has to be something deeper in connection, because sex itself does not fix everything.
Yeah. And I think that's a misconception about romance. So when you hear the question, how do you foster or maintain romance? Growing up, I guess it would be in the 80s and 90s, you had all these romance novels and you just hear the word romance and it's like, oh, it's this feeling. And I'm like, now, being married 20 years, I'm like, it is anything but a feeling.
Yeah.
It's intentionality. It's a lot of action.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of connection. It's not this warm and fuzzy feeling that you're just going to wake up one day and be like, oh, gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
That is so romantic. I really feel that.
Yeah. When you got kids running around the house and you're playing hide and go seek, it is anything but spontaneous at times. It's like, come on.
Yeah. So I think to your point, when it comes to the sexual side of romance, it's going to look very different. But the one thing that you can and should remain constant throughout your entire marriage is your friendship.
Yeah. And I think, that's... And the stronger that is, the more of a bridge we're going to have that can carry the weight of the change in seasons so that we can communicate about it.
Yeah.
And this is coming from a couple that honestly probably fought about sex more than almost anything else.
Oh, for sure.
In our marriage. And so we understand totally that it can be frustrating, but really digging into those things, listening to the podcast that we gave you, doing the work that we're talking about doing on all these podcasts, are some of the things that got us to the place that we could both look at each other and say, we're not just fulfilled, but we're happy with our sex life. And does that mean that every week we're happy with our sex life? No, that does not mean every week we are, but it means we're in a season that we are. And it really is digging into those things so that sex isn't just something we do physically, but it's something that intimately is taking place between us, and that's actually built on something.
Yeah.
So sex is the foundation. It's actually part of the building.
Correct.
That's built on the foundation
Yeah.
of intimacy.
Yeah. Do you want to talk through a little bit? I think we wrote on our notes about having expectations and clarifying, like, what does romance mean to you?
Yeah.
Versus what for it. What do I expect?
Yeah.
So what did you write down?
No, you first. I want to hear you.
I gotta pull up my notes.
You do your notes. I want to hear you first. Yeah.
I think I wrote. Hang on, I gotta find it. I didn't bring my glasses.
Well, I've got it right here.
Okay, well, you read it.
So what is it that keeps us connected? So Lauren said.
Oh, it was connection.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
And so you talked about communication after the fact, winning, and laughing together.
Yes.
So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times because we have worked so hard about our communication, about expectation on the front end, like, hey, what does this week look like?
Yeah.
I
Which we
think-
talked about a few episodes
ago. I think for me, I like to know, being an achiever, I like to know that I hit the mark. So I think, like, in times past, you've been like, oh my gosh, this week has just been the best. Thanks for carving out time, or thanks for being intentional. So it's not necessarily.
And she doesn't
communicate.
like it right after we had sex.
No.
So that's not what she's saying.
I don't want to
So
thank you.
communication after the fact. Thanks. That was great. She's like, you want to
Thank
leave
you.
a tip? What are you doing? And no, what she's wanting is the intentional thank you that's not the emotional Aaron talking after, all the fun just happened. She's wanting it to actually come from the heart, not the head.
Well said.
Well said.
Well said.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to know that it's like what we're doing, the work that we're putting in is
Producing.
working.
Yeah, working. It's
and
winning.
being fruitful.
Yeah.
The other one was, what is the second one you wrote?
You said winning.
Winning
And then
together.
laughing
Yeah,
together.
that laughing. So I think which goes back to probably like the friendship side of what we had before we dated is I felt like whenever we were together, we were always laughing. Like it came easy and it wasn't something that like I had to work at with
So
you.
this is
It
fun.
wasn't like you were not a drag.
No, we were writing this down. I was like, so you want to laugh during sex?
No.
She was like, no, I don't want to laugh during sex.
Are you talking about when we did the love mapping? Oh my gosh.
But
Which that's
she does.
That's a good exercise.
That is great. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But it is that fact of like, we are huge proponents of sex being fun.
Yeah.
And so whatever that means for you,
And you can't take yourself too seriously.
you can't take yourself
have
too
to laugh at
seriously. Like
yourself.
as you, yes, dear God, like we can get in all that. As you get older, things don't work like they used to. Things go awry. Bad. It's just you. If sex is being taken too seriously, and I mean like, just too seriously between a husband and wife, there's no freedom in it. And what I mean is not just sexual freedom to do crazy stuff. I'm just talking about freedom to let water roll off your back.
Yeah.
It's about connecting, not about just finishing. And I think that's such an important thing when you realize is like, this is not always, I mean, if you've been in an intimate relationship with somebody, it does not always go as planned.
No.
And it's great when it does, but it's important that we're having fun together and not taking ourselves too seriously in the process. And so mine were friendship, like intentionality. So it's a big deal for me for you to be intentional. I think we talked about this recently is like we had planned to connect and you came to me and you're like, tonight's not going to happen. And so, what once was sunny skies turned to gray. Just kidding.
I get you. Or
Yeah, but she said tomorrow night, and I was
which
like,
I would say, as easygoing and as flexible as you are on most things, this would not be.
yeah, I'm not flexible about this.
You're
I'm like
flexible.
legalistic. I'm a Pharisee. I'm like,
But you said.
I mean, I started picking up a rock. I was like, stone her! How dare she back up on intimacy?
Liar.
Liar! You lied to me. But then you said tomorrow night. And so actually, I told you, I think later that meant more to me that you were intentional about not, I mean, it was, it sucked that it wasn't that night, but it was like, hey, we're going to make sure that we connect tomorrow night. And so that's really important. And intentionality of it not being something I have to ask you for or something I have to beg you for. It's those things of like, we're just going to be intentional with our time together. Because I would say a lot of times if we're not careful, guys or a lot of men, myself, let me just say it about me, can get very frustrated when all the kids take your affection or take your attention.
Yeah.
Or
the dog.
Or the dog. That freaking dog. But, there are times too where I've got to be honest that this relationship or work takes my attention. And so, my MO is that I still want what I want when other things have my attention. Mm-hmm. But when things have your attention, I get upset. And so.
And that is, I think, how you would say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but sex is the way that you would say that you connect emotionally. Mm-hmm. And I would say for not all women, certainly, but I think a lot of women, speaking for myself, need to feel emotionally connected before. Yeah. And so that can be.
Yeah. And I think,
cycle.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the place of that attachment styles podcast. that we recommended up here is really good about kind of diagnosing and helping you break down why is that,
Yeah.
and understand. And so when we listen to it, we actually listen to it to understand, yes, ourselves, but also understand each other, which then gives us more grace and love towards each other. Because you used a word the other day that you were going to, what was it going to be that I said, would you make, we weren't going to be able to do it.
Accommodate?
Yes, you said I will accommodate. And I don't know why, like, that word actually blessed me, because maybe it's because
Wow.
I've actually gotten healed. But maybe it was.
Finally. I'm just kidding.
But it didn't feel as like you were, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't like you were giving me a gift. You know what I'm saying? It was just more like, hey,
Like when you say thank you.
Yeah, exactly. It was more like you were like, yeah, I know that this is what you need, and I want to do that.
More seeing you.
Yeah, you
Making
were more
sure
seeing me
yeah.
with that word, and I don't know why that ministered to me so much, but it really did.
But don't you think that's like what a lot of, not necessarily like in the newlywed phase, but I think the longer that you're married, that can be a lot of what is romantic to the other person is like you just seeing them.
I think and I think that's my other one is just being the focus. I think so often in our life, we don't focus on each other.
Yeah.
We actually take each other for granted. And I think that's why so often guys get bothered by, like, for women, it's romance and then physical intimacy. Because there's a lot of guys, that ain't getting the physical intimacy, but they're trying to get the romance. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, as a guy, you can give romance all day long, but if the woman doesn't come back and lean into physical intimacy, it kind of feels like you're just giving and there ain't no taking, and vice versa. But the issue is like what we promised each other was to focus on each other. Like to say, hey, if there's anything I'm going to spend money on, it's not spending money. Like when we've made this decision, I love, buying you things and you love, we love doing that stuff for each other. But we do not cheapen. We are not cheap when it comes to spending money with each other.
Yeah. Like making memories.
Yeah. That's like, you have to be wise. Everybody has a budget. But like, man, I'm not trying to buy you off. Mm-hmm. We just love going and spending time with each other and making memories with each other where we are focused on each other. And that's why we love to go eat lunch. It's a no business lunch. We don't talk about business. I'm sure we do at times, but we like to go out of town, partially because, we it's hard to go someplace in town, but also some of our best talks are side by side in the car, driving, walking together. Now we can do a date night a week, maybe sometimes some more date nights a week because we have a 16-year-old, which means we have an Uber driver. It's an expensive Uber.
That's a very
expensive Uber, but it is a blessing in that season of our life. So let's talk about one thing that we're going to give everybody on this podcast that probably is one of the things that helped us most with our sex life. And so when we went to see our counselors, they gave us something called the Love Map.
Love mapping.
Yeah. And so it's a worksheet that we work through. And so you basically both print it off. It's going to be connected to this podcast. And you fill it out separately. You don't fill it out together. You fill it out separately. And then you schedule a meeting. It can be, if you want to get really freaky and talk about this stuff at a restaurant, you can. Or you can schedule a time to just sit down and talk about it with each other. But again, what you're doing is you're filling this out, and it's talking about how you like to be loved, how you like to make love, different things. It is a very detailed map. And I'll never forget, we actually in Williamsburg when you remember that?
Yeah.
We were in Williamsburg and we pulled out our sheets because we had been going through it for several years over this issue. We sat down and Lauren went first and she kind of unpacked what she likes, what she doesn't like. And It was kind of fun.
Yeah, I would say we both were a little bit suppressed.
We were.
I think it was all the things that we hadn't told each other that we maybe assumed. And
Yeah,
fill
so
in the
there's definitely
blanks.
things I assumed that she didn't like that she actually did, and there's things that I assumed that she did like that she didn't like. And then there was just things that I don't think I had the bravery, or you weren't maybe as open to tell me.
Well, I think that's what the worksheet helps facilitate is it can take away some of the awkward. And it's just on paper, and you like, for me, it's just like, I'm just filling out this paper.
That's right.
It's not an awkward conversation.
Yeah, and then we sit down, and you went through it first, and then obviously I went through mine, and then what we actually did, which was the fun part of the exercise, is you plan a night where it's all about her 1st, and then you plan a night where it's all about him. And it's just one of those worksheets that we still have to this day. We'll still review, but it changed our lives together, and it shifted how we connect, and what does that connection look like. And here's the deal when it comes about sex. People will ask, and I'm sure we'll get asked sometimes, frequency, blah 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 blah. That's a big thing on social media now, frequencies and things like that. We would always land that it just needs to be regular. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like regular intimacy. And that's going to shift with season to season. But regular intimacy that we both have agreed upon is important. And that it would be fun. And that we don't have one person doing what the other person just wants all the time. So like when it comes to intimacy, for it to be intimacy, we're both being open about what we like and dislike. And it doesn't mean that we always just do what we like or that we always do what we dislike. And in most relationships, that usually is happening. There's somebody who's getting it the way they want it. And there's somebody who is, because rolling over and either, not engaged at all because they're rolling over, or they're just doing it because that's what they do because of their past hurts and wounds.
Yeah.
And real intimacy isn't that.
No.
And so this is a great exercise for y'all to do as couples. And you can hit us back, tell us what you've discovered.
Or not.
Or not.
Keep that to yourself.
Keep that to yourself. But do that work because it changed our lives. And I think it'll change yours. And so, any thoughts?
No, I think you did it.
Get to it. Map it.